Today on Larry King Now, one of the most prolific quarterbacks in history, Terry Bradshaw.
It just depends on what you want your perception to be. And I was very serious as a player. And the minute it was over, I remember telling my family, I said, now I can be me.
On current issues in the NFL, how will the NFL deal with Mr. Sam and the rest that are going to come?
You have to judge him as a football player, Larry. Simply that. The rest is out the side. That's his choice.
On touring with his new show.
The show is My Life to Song.
Plus, you backed Phil Robertson.
I did.
He was the starting quarterback.
He was good. I used to go fishing with him all the time. Matter of fact, he put a sack over my head, made me lay down in the bottom of a boat because he knew if we caught fish that I'd come back the next day in my boat and go to that same spot.
All next on Larry King Now. Welcome to Larry King Now. Our special guest, look forward to it, Terry Bradshaw, Hall of Fame quarterback, 4 Super Bowl rings, 2-time Super Bowl MVP awards, a New York Times best-selling author. He can also be seen co-hosting Fox's NFL Sunday during the NFL season, and because that isn't enough, he currently is touring the country with his show, Terry Bradshaw, America's favorite dumb blonde. A life in 4 quarters. We're going to get to that in a while. Speak of all the things you do, you mentioned the hits from your playing days have affected your memory. Tell me about that.
Well, and I certainly am not in a category by myself because, you know, there's current lawsuits being...
Are you part of any lawsuit?
I was asked to be a part of it, but I refused. I grew up with a family that was anti-suing, basically.
I see.
And so my foundation as a child was pretty much, you know, that's how it was. And I felt that Larry, since I was fortunate enough to play in the National Football League, and since I was fortunate enough to play 14 years and had to retire because of an elbow injury, I made that choice. And obviously, early in the 70s, you would play and get knocked out, and you'd play, you know, against the Dolphins in 72. I got knocked out in the first quarter, came back and played in the fourth quarter. Today, I would have been out,
right? You
know, for a week or 2 weeks.
They do take better care today, though.
Absolutely,
yeah.
and I just felt that I didn't want to be a part of something that I was uncomfortable about. I didn't want to lend my name to it, thinking it was a star power because they had so many great players that were a part of it, and so I passed on it. Because I was getting medical attention on my own without.
It is a violent game.
Yes.
Do you think they're ever going to way to stop? Are they going to help the helmets? Any way to curb concussions in a game where you get hit?
They've already done a great job in taking away the head, and so now they're teaching with the shoulder. You can do more damage with this than you ever can with this. But we were always taught that you lead with your head and body follows and head up.
But so, this ain't going to cause dementia or...
No, not. You may have, you know, arthritis in your shoulder. Yeah. But they've done a great job of implementing new rules. They're enforcing the rules. They will continue to improve their equipment. The lawsuits will force things even more rapidly. And I know the NFL... And they're also losing now. They're losing. Young kids aren't playing football anymore.
30% down, Pop One.
Well, see, and it was just 19% a couple of years ago.
Right.
So now it's 30. So that gives you. And so the NFL is they're smart, they're savvy, they're great marketers, and they're not missing out on the point that we're losing young people to our sport. And so I personally think that you shouldn't play football when you're young anyway because you're not getting the proper coaching. If your daddy is coaching you and he's a businessman, that's not a good get. You know,
it's okay in Little League.
That's not a good deal as far as I'm concerned.
It's okay in Little League.
But they're doing the right job. They're doing the right things now.
By the way, did you suffer depression?
Yes.
Still do?
Yes.
Take medication?
I took medication for a long time, but I'm also an ADD kid, and so not a good combination, and you can't necessarily take both pills.
Why did you come out about it, though?
At first, I felt that it was a sign of weakness until I got educated on it. Men, you know, men don't want people, hey, look, I got dealing with depression.
Yeah.
And then you don't want people to say, well, you had such a great career, you're such a funny guy, you seem to focus on Fox. And now all of a sudden they attack you And so that made me very uncomfortable. Now it's something that men should not be ashamed of. And I've had a lot of men, Larry, come up and say, "Hey, man, I really appreciate.
I really
appreciated you coming out and saying the things you did."
All right, some current football topics, and I want to talk about your tour and everything.
Okay.
You think the Redskins should change their name?
I've never been asked this question. It's sensitive, but we have to be sensitive to everything. And I would say my answer to that would be yes. My answer would be yes.
I'm a friend of Dan Snyder.
Yeah.
I like him. He chairs
It's got nothing to do with whether
he chairs our charity.
Right.
And if it offends enough of a group of people, what's the big deal?
Right, exactly.
It's just a name.
I'm so careful with certain topics because social media, they take things and it just gets spun wrong. But since this Redskin thing has come out in the last year, and I've given it some thought. And I'm going, you know what? Yeah, if it's really offending folks, absolutely. Did you see the article in the paper where the defensive back said, it's like the N-word?
Yeah, wow. I didn't see it, but
yes.
I do. Sure, I understand.
So Redskins, if it's offensive, everybody loves the Washington Redskins, but they can be Washington something else. It's not going to change a thing.
Speaking of the N-word, how's the NFL going to deal with banning it?
Well, that's going to go through the coaches, down through the position coaches, and to the leaders of the football team, and it will and to the black athletes who are primarily the ones that use it the most, and so therefore they'll have to monitor it. I don't think it's going to be an issue. I think once it's brought up in meetings, once your position coaches, once the leaders of the football team talk about it, I think that it'll.
The referee is going to have a tough, because blacks use it as a friendly term to fellow blacks. So will the referee throw the flag?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah, they will.
I think so.
Just forget it.
I think so.
But,
and it needs to be eliminated.
Yeah. Now I'm bringing into a lot of controversy. We might as well get.
I was sitting, my head spinning a little bit. Am I saying anything wrong here?
Might as well get to gays in the NFL. How will they? Let's slip right into the easy part. How will the NFL deal with Mr. Sam and the rest that are going to come?
I think Michael Sam's has painted the picture of himself as a football player, number one. It's the way he wants to be judged, and that's the way he should be judged, and not because of his he's a gay athlete that came out. Was I shocked by it? No, it didn't even faze me. It didn't faze me at all. But he has to be judged as a football player, understanding that he went to a football team loaded on defense, loaded.
Yeah,
so his chances are going to be he's really going to have to shine on special teams, and he's going to have that special spark when he plays to make that football team. But you have to judge him as a football player, Larry. Simply that. The rest is out the side. That's his choice.
Other things to talk about, as well as Terry Bradshaw was a backup. I'll tell you about it after this. We're back with the great Terry Bradshaw. We'll talk about his role as a backup quarterback. I got to cover this because it's the 20th anniversary of the O.J. Simpson trial. You knew O.J., played against him, didn't you?
Right.
What do you make of all of that?
Yeah, I was shocked. Shocked by the whole thing. As a matter of fact, I just come in from working cattle. And my wife was sitting there with my mom, and they had this thing on TV, the car. And I'm like, what are y'all doing? And they go, O.J. killed his wife, and I went, what? I mean, so I was totally living in Grand Cane, Louisiana. I didn't have a lot of news back then, and you didn't necessarily. Didn't even have cable. I just had the networks, and so.
There's two sides of O.J., don't you think? There was a great side to O.J.
I was around O.J. Not a lot. But he, matter of fact, when I came into the NFL and played against Buffalo, he came over and welcomed me to the NFL. Couldn't have been nicer.
I know.
And then when and I saw him when we were interviewing, when he was working network and doing interviews, we were doing interviews with the same people, and we met at hotels.
He was captain of every team he ever played on.
He couldn't have been more pleasant, couldn't have been nicer.
Yeah.
Shocked.
All right, we are now going to show you a little clip here.
It came to a point, I had one more year to play. Bradshaw second string, I'm first string. I said, Bradshaw, I'm stepping out to chase the Ducks. and you step in and you want to be an NFL quarterback, get after it. A couple of years later, Bob Brunei, he went to play for the Washington Redskins on the same team. Yeah. He said, Robinson, you ought to come up here, walk on. But in those days, Larry, there was $60,000 a year, and I would miss duck season.
You keep in touch with Terry?
Huh? I'll keep in touch with him. Good guy.
Good guy. And that, of course, was Phil Robertson from Duck Dynasty. You backed him up?
I did.
He was the starting quarterback?
He was good.
What school was that?
Louisiana Tech.
Louisiana Tech.
Right.
I know that place.
Right.
Eastern Louisiana.
He was good. He was out of Vivian, Louisiana. Oh, he was out of Oil City, Louisiana, 6'2", 185. And we ran the West Coast offense, very complicated. And he ran it, had a quick release. And
Why
he
didn't
could flat play.
Could he have gone to the NFL?
If he would have wanted to, if he had been as devoted and had the passion for football as he does for hunting back then, because he would show up, he was always late, and he always wore a T-shirt, always had blood on it, or a feather, or squirrel guts. He never wore socks. He always wore Adidas and cream Levi blue jeans and a white T-shirt.
Did he have a beard?
He did not. He had a flat top, clean shaven. He was the guy that nicknamed me the Blonde Bomber. But he was a great guy. And I used to go fishing with him all the time. Matter of fact, he put a sack over my head, made me lay down in the bottom of a boat because he knew if we caught fish that I'd come back the next day in my boat and go to that same spot. So he would make me put a sack on and lay in the bottom of the boat, and that's where I'd stay till we got to where we were going.
Where were you drafted?
I was the first player picked.
So you backed him up for a couple of years. You had a hell of a senior year at LT.
I had a great junior year and great junior and senior year.
A lot of pressure being a first pick.
I didn't realize it, Larry, at the time, how much pressure it was. I didn't realize. I never thought. I never did interviews. We never did interviews. We didn't have television people doing interviews with us. So when I went to Pittsburgh, all this was new. I had to learn how to deal with the media, and I didn't understand at the time that the first player picked. So much is expected of him, but also if you're the first player picked, you're going to the worst team. And I didn't understand the worst team thing. And so I put a lot of pressure on myself because I wasn't playing well when the season started. And I'm letting all these people down. And the fact was, this was a team that was just putting it together.
I told you before we started, I broadcast Dolphin football. I did the color. And the first year you were all together. It was in the Orange Bowl, 71, I guess.
71.
And you came in, you were beating us at halftime. You were all rookie team.
Yeah.
And we wound up winning the game. But Don Shula told me at the end of the game, that team is going to win a lot of games. No. Well, they won 4 Super Bowls. No. Was that the greatest aggregation, do you think?
Nobody ever says to me, ever, how many yards you throw far? How many touchdown passes did you throw far? They always want what? They want to see the rings. Everyone wants to see the rings. And so that's what you're measured by. That's your job.
Did you win?
We won. And we won 4 Super Bowls. Thank you very much. I'm going home, get a job, got to get on with my life's work. And that's how I approached it.
Terry Bradshaw, the singer, next. Before we talk about Terry's touring show, you've been a Fox analyst for 20 years now. Unbelievable.
This will be our 21st.
21st year. Why does that show work so well? Howie Long, Jimmy Johnson, Strahan, Kurt Menefee. Why does it work so well?
We genuinely are best friends. All of us. We hang.
Yeah.
You
can tell.
From what we hear, other people don't hang. We hang. Jimmy Johnson and I watch football all day Saturday. Jimmy's at my hotel at 8:30. Sometimes we'll work out, we come in, and then we watch football, and he'll leave 5 or 6, between 5 and 6.
All in L.A.,
Kurt Menefee will come by. Jay Glazer comes by. Howie not so much comes by because he looks at a lot of tape. He looks at a lot more tape. I don't look at tape. But Howie looks at a lot of tape. But great friend. All of these guys, we're all great friends. Strahan, even though he's got the big gig in New York, great.
Your show has such fun.
It is
fun to be around.
It is a fun show, and people say you guys look like you're having so much fun, and we are. We are having a good time.
Did you naturally take to broadcasting? Because you're you. That's the secret of
it. When I originally was offered the job at CBS, I was going to be a
color man,
an analyst, and then I knew I was never going to beat out the greatest analyst that's ever lived, John Madden. And then they fired Musburger April Fool's Day, and I get a phone call, and they said, we fired Brent Musburger, and it's April Fool's Day. I'm ha ha ha, and then they said, no, we did, and what we want to do is rebuild NFL today. We want you And I said, well, will you come back for that? And I said, absolutely. So that's how it started.
All right, tell me about this show you do. What are you? You're not a dumb blonde. What is it?
Well, my image was dumb. People, I've always used that.
You can't be a dumb quarterback.
No, you can't. But I took it, and it's always been out there. It's always been when the people criticize me, or even when they're complimenting me, they'll say, even though he called his own plays, he wasn't smart, he stuttered in the huddle, stuff like that. Which, if you're calling on your own plays, you have the right to say, open right 66 space. No. Let's go 70 slot hook and go. You have that right. That's not starting in the huddle. That's something else came to your mind.
So what is your show?
The show is my life to song.
You tour. Where do you go to theater?
I do theaters. I will do three theaters this year, and I will do 15 casinos. I opened up at the Mirage in Vegas. That's like NASCAR going to Daytona or playing the Super Bowl. I've never been anything so unnerving. And your friends are out there? Are you kidding me? The last thing I want is for Larry King or any of my friends to come watch this, because I get uncomfortable. Uncomfortable.
Now you're not uncomfortable.
No.
Right?
Well, it's a lot to learn. It took 3 years to write it, and then I had to cut it down. It was 142 pages of script, and I had to cut it down.
Who came up with the idea to do this?
John Max, who was a great joke writer for Leno, and I'd been on the Tonight Show several times, and he came to hear me speak, and he went, "Golly, man, boy, that's got." People need to hear this. He says, you can sing. And he said, I mean, go with Anita Mann. Anita Mann Productions, she produced Michael Jackson, Elvis Presley, their shows in Vegas. And so he said, got Anita, and he said, you got to come listen and hear this guy speak. So I was speaking in Vegas. She has her shows in Vegas. She brings her staff to hear me speak. Well, we meet afterwards. She says, oh, my God, this will work. So now she calls in David Goldsmith, the writer, and then John Max and I, we all meet and we start doing it, and we start writing. It took a year to write it, another year to change it. John wrote some jokes. I put all the family stuff in there, and you have to get past the vainness, Larry.
Yeah.
You have to get past the vain. Why? Who would want to come listen to my? You have to get past that.
But you were natural. Were you always a natural? Were you always kind of the outspoken guy, the guy who?
I was always
funny.
I was always funny, always funny, always try to be funny.
Most great athletes aren't. You know,
no,
they aren't. They aren't.
Athlete.
They're not the class clown.
Yeah,
you know, they're not the funny guys.
I know.
Johnny Unitas didn't break you up.
No. I never. I remember Chuck Noll saying to me one time. He said, "I wish you to be like Johnny Unitas, study." But my whole point was, well, I'm here at 7:30 and I don't leave till 6:30 or 7 at night, and we've gone through so much tape and all this stuff, and you've got the game plan for me, and I'm tired. When I go home, I'm gonna put this tape on. I didn't watch a lot.
You want me to be smart?
Yeah. There's only 2 coverages, man and zone. I can figure that out. So it just depends on what you want your perception to be. And I was very serious as a player. Very serious. You have to be. And the minute it was over, I remember telling my family, I said, now I can be me. But enough of that came out in interviews and stuff, or else the networks. Not necessarily.
Well, I loved watching you. We'll find out about Terry's first kiss and more when we get back.
First kiss, oh my God.
A couple of quick social media questions. At Real Chris Brown asks, what would be your go-to play? Did you have a favorite play?
62 dig.
Which is?
Double end, post on the outside, post on stalwart, tight end, 12-yard crossing route. And then flanker post in with the option to slow it down if it was zoned or something, because there's seams there. And then always gave stalwart, after we'd run it a couple of times, always the option to read it, and he could either go take off. He didn't have to go post. He could go skinny post, or he could run a Q or come up and lay. It was always gave him options on the one receiver.
Long as you weren't.
But double ends, I love throwing the deep passes.
As long as you weren't sacked.
Yeah.
Okay, at $1.4 million piece, do you think Johnny Manziel will be an elite NFL quarterback?
I hope so. I like Johnny Manziel. If I could talk to him, I'd say, don't listen to anybody. Don't listen to social media. Don't listen to what reporters are saying. Be yourself. Be true to yourself.
Rome 1213 Instagram. What do you think of some new NFL rules? Extended goalpost 5 feet higher. Recovery of a loose ball reviewable. Allow the clock to run after a quarterback is sacked. Simplify enforceable points, extend roll-up blocks from behind, and also include from the side.
Yeah, the blocking thing is huge. Protection.
You think they're all good rules?
Yeah, I do. The goalpost thing, what if you got a lot of wind?
What is it going to be? Higher? What?
Higher. I don't know.
What's the thinking?
You know what? We're doing this interview in June. And I don't start studying this stuff.
Okay. I don't want to make it too complex for you, Terry. Okay.
So I haven't really gotten into it.
I get it.
If you're going to go 5, how far are they going? 5 feet?
That's what they say.
Yeah, might as well go, you can't.
Why not 10?
You can't go. Well, I think you'll sit there and do this. It's going to wobble.
We'll play a game of.
But I am about any rule that's going to protect the legs of the offensive and defensive linemen. Absolutely.
Now a game of if you only knew. Do you remember the first girl you kissed?
Yes.
What was her name?
Mary Alice Crawford.
Where was it?
Comanche, Iowa, behind a billboard sign.
Iowa. I thought you were raised in Louisiana.
I was, but we spent 4 years in Iowa, Comanche, Iowa.
How old were you?
9, maybe? 8, 9.
You ever find out what happened to her?
No.
First touchdown pass you ever threw?
First one ever. No, I don't remember.
High school?
The first touchdown pass I threw in high school slipped out of my hand. It was a bootleg and my head coach told me don't throw the ball because we're up 40. But I never got to play, and I got to go in and play, and so I third down, oh boy, and so I called a bootleg, and when I came out, my best friend Tommy Spinks was wide open. Touchdown. I ain't 20 yards behind everybody. Well, I had play action, and Tom Hagan, our halfback, he just went down the right sideline. Seriously, I stand here for a second. And as I came out, I set my feet, and I saw Tommy. And when I went to throw, the ball slipped right there and came out. And Tom Hagan was running down the right side.
Wrong guy caught it.
Wrong guy caught it. First high school pass, wrong guy caught it.
Favorite football memory?
Super Bowl IX locker room. When Mr. Rooney got the Vince Lombardi trophy. Greatest memory ever.
Great man.
Yes, awesome.
Funniest teammate you ever had?
Man. Dwight Mad Dog White, funny. Frenchie Fuqua, funny. I was just kind of an instigator.
Hardest hitter you ever got? Who hit you the hardest?
Ed Too Tall Jones buried me in Cleveland and gave me a spinal contusion.
Most exciting player in the NFL today?
Today? You know what? I'm going to say Peyton Manning.
What happened to the running backs? There's no running backs anymore.
No, not anymore.
Guy in Minnesota.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Peterson. Yeah. But no, it's quarterback league now. And you know what we got right now, Larry? The very thing that the NFL tried to keep away was a merger with the AFL. And the reason that AFL and NBC were doing so well is because the AFL said, what? We're going to throw. Right. We're going to be entertaining, and the fans are going to love this. And that's exactly what happened. And then Namath beat, they beat Shooter. And so therefore, and then you had the merger. And now we're back to the AFL. Now they're throwing 40, 45 passes a game. A 300-yard game is nothing. You know how many 300-yard games I threw for in my NFL career? You want to take a stab at it?
5. 3.
3. My first one was in Super Bowl 13. First 300-yard game.
Who's the most knowledgeable football guy you know?
Howie Long. Well, the guys I know, Howie Sharp, Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy, my God, I could have done it.
What's the best thing about football?
Oh, man. I love it. Well, first of all, it's competition. It's you're matching, as a quarterback, you're matching wits, setting your team up. It's nothing greater than making an adjustment at the line of scrimmage or going check with me and getting up and calling the right play, run our pass, whatever it is. Also, you're challenged because there's ups and downs. Super Bowls especially, after 3 interceptions against the Rams in Super Bowl 14, could have easily just, parked it. It's a Super Bowl, and you're just scrambling in your brains trying to figure out what can I do different? What's going on? So the strategy behind it's kind of. I've read books on Patton. I love the strategy behind what generals do. I think it's fascinating.
It's a war, right? You go to war.
It is. It's just you against them. And
who's your favorite country artist?
Alan Jackson.
Most underrated player in the NFL today?
There's a bunch of them, hundreds.
Too many.
Too many, yeah. Too many to single out.
Who, right now, if you had to pick, who would go to the Super Bowl?
I'm going to say Denver and San Francisco.
And you played for a great coach, Chuck
did.
Noll, an underrated, never gets mentioned.
Exactly.
Who's a coach you'd like to have played for?
There's several. I would have loved to have played for Landry, even though he was similar to my guy. But I think he was fascinating. The 4-3 defense, the safety blitz, the flex defense, tackles on, tackles off, the shift. Remember the linemen would come up and down. All that was.
Well, Landry was a defensive genius.
Yeah, he was coming over from the Giants. His offensive scheme was nobody had seen it. You know, he was. I know I wouldn't have liked him because it's what the system says. If you ever see that interview, it's what the system says. Well, I'm not a system guy because human beings, these aren't computers. These are human beings. So, but I would have loved to have played for him. Don Coryell, brilliant.
Air Coryell,
brilliant. Paul Brown would have been another one I would have loved to have played. Bum Phillips. If my career's over with, and they say, look, you got 2 years left to play. Any coach in the league will take you. Where are you going? I'm going to Houston. I'm going down to be with Bum.
Terry, you're the best.
Thanks.
I want to thank my guest, Terry Bradshaw. Be sure to go to terry-bradshaw.com to get tickets to see his show.
You don't want to miss it.
Terry Bradshaw, America's favorite dumb blonde. It's a life in 4 quarters. And be prepared to see him on Fox's NFL Sunday, their 21st year together this upcoming season. You can find me on Twitter at Kings Things. I'll see you next time. Great man.